One Question is brought to you by Turnkey Search, a top industry search firm since 1996.
What about historically for you and Craig, and it sounds like this process obviously has been honed over the years, have there been specific markers or specific searches or post-searches throughout your all's years that you guys have stepped back and said, hang on a second, we missed something here and we need to make sure we apply that to the next process? Can you identify some of those?
I don't know that I want to use specific searches, but what I would say is that over the years, as you know, we've hired some pretty successful coaches here, and we have a culture now here where you step in here and you're expected to compete for conference championships and for national championships. And what we realized along the way is that you really should not treat the revenue sports any different than the Olympic sports when you're trying to recruit a quality person. I think that's truly important here at the University of Virginia. At the University of Virginia, it's important that somebody understand this place, that academics are important, that you have to be a significant part of the community here. And arguably, it's a little bit different than a lot of schools that would just say, we're going to hire the best football coach and bring them in here and let them go. You've got to make sure you understand what's important to this institution. It's easier for Olympic sport coaches to do that, so we try and examine what has worked with those sports to then try and hire in the revenue sports a quality person that can do the same thing in those sports. It started for us, the first search we did together was Brian O'Connor. Tony Bennett was the first real revenue sports search that we combined those principles to say, is it really different? Should we be looking for the same skill sets and the same values as it relates to the revenue sports? And I think we would all agree that in hiring Tony Bennett, we showed that if you do that well and understand your culture and what works, it fits well, and you should not change that simply because it's football or basketball. And I think now the Mendenhall search is a second example of that.
You mentioned that it's easier to do that with Olympic sports searches. Why is it easier?
Well, there's a lot more pressure in the beginning. Think about when you're in a decline and making the change and then trying to find the sexy name or winning the press conference. If you're not careful, you can get away from what's important, and in many respects, you've got to slow down and say, okay, who are we? What do we stand for? We all know what it's going to take to be successful here. Can we get that person, and let's make sure we give them the best opportunity to be successful? That's easier said than done, and in our case, we really tried to slow down because in Olympic sports searches, you don't have that pressure, right? The whole world's not paying attention to what you're doing. So if tomorrow we're changing out softball or track and field, it's important to some people, but the entire fan base is not paying attention to that. So you can really take your time to get that right. In football and basketball, you have days, if not hours. And let's not forget what happened in 2015. There were a number of institutions that opened up early so that you were competing against a lot of different people. So it was really important that we had our structure for the process in place that allowed us to slow down and treat it more like the Olympic sports search, because if you're not careful, you might end up with somebody that's not a great fit for what you're trying to do.
The early advanced preparation, and without obviously touching on what you guys did with Mike and then Bronco, it's fair to say you guys did a lot of preparation. I think I've read this in the media that you guys did a fair amount of preparation, like after week 7 or 8, you really started the process. I think I've read you say in some capacity, so that would probably be a fair assessment.
What I would say is every good administrator in intercollegiate athletics knows that you always have to keep a short list, and you're surveying the landscape of what might happen in your situation, whether you have a quality coach that might leave or a coach that's not doing as well. So I don't think there's too many people that start in the last 2 or 3 weeks of the season. And in our case, remember, we struggled mightily over the last couple of years, so we were planning for the worst-case scenario while still trying to support your current coach. If we make a change, what are the important aspects of trying to get it right if we do have to make that change as we recruit the next candidate? So we really were able to plan that process, take our time, and get it right. And I'm thankful we did that now because nobody could have anticipated that you had that many openings occur during the season. And because of that advanced work that we did, we didn't feel the pressure to speed up or do something different simply because that was going on.
And that's today's One Question, brought to you by Turnkey Search, a top industry search firm since 1996. One Question is designed to give D1 Ticker subscribers valuable insights on how executive leaders in college athletics think about key issues on their respective campuses, in their departments, or within their leagues and conferences. One Question is brought to you by Turnkey Search, a top industry search firm since 1996.